if there's missed tackles, it's going to happen. But to have 10 or 11 guys to the ball, helps, nullify that. I think you can say it's an X's and O's thing, but when we don't execute and we don't play the way we're supposed to and use our hands and get off blocks, then that's a recipe for, a rough game.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Matchup presented by Unibet. I'm Mike Prisuta, filling in for Missy Matthews. That was Cam Hayward talking about all those missed tackles in Sunday's 16-16 tie against the Detroit Lions and what the Steelers intend to do about it. As for this coming game Sunday night in Los Angeles against the Chargers, we're here to hash all that out and get you ready for that. Let's meet our panel for today. Three pretty familiar faces on these programs. First, former Steelers offensive lineman and current Steelers color analyst, Craig Wolfley. Wolf, how are you today?
I'm fine, my man. Thank you.
We're also joined by former Steelers linebacker, SNR participant, and last but certainly not least, James Madison University Hall of Famer, Arthur Moats.
Oh, Dukes, let's go, man.
Last but not least, from SNR, Matt Williamson. Matt, good to have you today.
Absolutely.
Guys, we're talking about the Steelers and the Chargers today, and sometimes these matchups are very complex, very nuanced, very layered. This one, not so much, at least from where I'm sitting. The Chargers rank number 32 in the NFL in run defense, and I might remind everybody watching that there are 32 teams in the National Football League. That means the Chargers are last in run defense. Matt, is this day made to order, this night I should say, made to order for Najee Harris?
It sure is, without question. I mean, teams not only are running with great success against the Chargers, and some of it's the Chargers scheme, but they also don't really have the defensive tackles to pull that scheme off. But people are just running it over and over and over. I mean, the Lions are the second most run-on team in the league. We saw those guys last week, and maybe the Steelers should have stuck with that a little bit more. Who's to say? I think they're going to learn their lesson against a team that's run on the most and just give it to Harris over and over and over.
Wolf, does that have to happen for this team to get out of L.A. with a victory?
I'm not saying it has to happen because I think they can win even if it doesn't happen, such as you'd like to see another 100, 150-yard rushing. But here's the point. You got Bosa down. You got Tillery down. You got Christian Covington. Three of the top defensive linemen. They're out, either COVID or injury or what have you. You've got one of their top linebackers. He got COVIDed out last week. I'm not sure if he'll be back. So the point is, if they can't stop the run, then you run till they can stop it. And if they can't stop it, then you keep on running. I mean, I don't think it's doesn't take a lot of rocket scientists to figure this out. Turn the dogs loose out there, let them ground and pound and shorten that game and just have a lot of fun getting after it. Because I will tell you one thing, I'm really looking forward to Kendrick Green locking up with Linval Joseph. That's going to be a meat-eater matchup that you want to see.
Hey, man, now, Wolf, you bring up that matchup. I'm excited as well because Linval is a 2010 draft guy. That was a part of my class, so I'm excited to see that right there, the old versus the new. But in terms of, man, this running attack, when you talk about how banged up the Chargers are in their front seven, that's the weak part for them right now because in their secondary, they still have Derwin James, who is an amazing safety. They still have Chris Harris Jr., who has proven for over a decade now in this league that he can get it done at corner. Asante Samuel Jr. as well. So to me, I say, man, you have to feast. You have to take advantage of their shortcomings. And one of the best assets that we have offensively is Najee Harris. So I'm all for the belief that, man, you feed Najee. Wolf said until they stop it, I say you make them like it. Make them like the fact that we're handing the ball off to Najee as many times as we need to, because that's just, I think that's the best recipe for success, especially when we don't even know our quarterback situation for this week right now. So I just think with Najee, man, it's the surefire, safest move, and you can't go wrong with feeding Najee.
Arthur, perfect segue. It's almost like we planned this out ahead of time, which rest assured we did not. But the Steelers quarterback situation is up in the air, and I'll let you guys know in case you didn't hear, Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, meeting the media this morning, and he said of Ben Roethlisberger, and I quote, "He's preparing like he's going to be there and ready to go." Roethlisberger still, of course, has to be asymptomatic and post a couple of negative tests before he's eligible to play. But the Steelers not ruling him out. And Matt Canada sounded encouraged, if not optimistic, by the way the week is playing out. But Art, let's stay with you. Does who starts at quarterback affect, or should it affect, whether or not the Steelers run the ball, and then maybe, I don't know, run the ball?
Well, I'm hoping that it isn't impacted by that, because regardless if it's Ben or if it's Mason, I still think the best recipe for success against this Chargers defense, as it's currently constructed, is by running the ball, is by being the physical unit that you guys have been working to become. Now, with Ben being back, if he is back, for example, I do think that you'll see the team operate with a lot more confidence. And that's mainly because what Seven has meant to this organization. I mean, when he's out there, it's a different level of belief. Being a guy that shared the locker room with him, it's certain games you just go in, and even though on paper the odds may be stacked, because you got Seven, you just believe a little bit more. So I think if he is back, you get that added element, but I still don't want to see either one of our quarterbacks throwing the ball 35, 40 times against this Chargers defense, because now you're taking them off the hook. You're doing something that they actually are good at.
You know, I got to jump in. I think Arthur's just spot on, because here's the thing about it. Minus all the front end guys that we're already talking about, the fact is, I think this offensive line has got the opportunity to get the groove going again. I think after the Bears game, it was kind of like everybody was a little disgruntled, right? So you want to have a little retribution. You want to set things right. So you do come out, you get a little redemption. You got 105 yards by Najee, but, you know, there was still meat on the bone left, to use Mike Tomlin's best quote, right? There's meat on the bone to get after it. And these guys, I think, young bucks, they're going to be after it to get it to do the job and finish the job. Now, the one caveat is, what about those guards and what's going to happen there? That's the one thing that makes you go, to Myron Copit a little bit.
Well, if that was going to be my follow-up, it's almost like we planned this show out today. This is amazing. Matt, who do you think needs a better performance from their running back? The Steelers from Najee Harris, or the Chargers from Austin Eckler?
I would say the Steelers. I mean, Harris is more of a foundation for the offense than Eckler is. He's an exceptional player. He's a great receiver, but they're different styles of ball carriers. You know, Harris is more of a tone setter, punisher. Eckler's more of a, I don't want to call him gadgety. That's selling him short. I mean, he's a heck of a weapon, and they're kind of looking for that second thunder to Eckler's lightning. They don't really have that right now. So I would say Harris. One thing, just to expand on what these two were saying before, is, you know, Arthur mentioned the back end of their defense is pretty darn good and very talented. You know, Wolf mentioned that they got 3 frontline guys on the COVID list right now. I think I would, you know, really dictate personnel with a lot of heavy guys on offense, try to make them stay with their heaviest personnel you can get on the field, no matter what you do with it. And then the difference, too, with Ben and Rudolph, to me, especially out of those type of situations, you're going to find some one-on-ones you like in addition to the running game.
Arthur, let's stick with you real quick about Eckler to follow up, because he is their third most targeted player in the passing game for the Chargers. But talk to me about a little guy running back. Can you see him? Is that part of the reason he's so effective, is he can just hide behind those linemen and then dart through a crease when one materializes?
Well, that definitely does play a part in it, because he is a shorter guy. He's not little by any stretch of the imagination, but he is on the shorter side. So, yeah, at times that does happen. But, man, I think that he has really good vision. I think that's something that gets overlooked, especially when you're talking about him running the ball. We know what he can do as a receiver. To me, I always view him as kind of like a poor man's version of Christian McCaffrey down in Carolina, in terms of just their versatility, and how, in terms of Matt breaking it down perfectly about how Najee is more of a tone setter, but with Austin, he's going to hit you in the unconventional ways that you're not really accustomed to being attacked at by a running back like him. But yeah, for me, man, I do think that, you know, his vision gets underrated, and that's ultimately why he's able to be as successful as he is with being a smaller guy.
Let's take a look now at the Unibet Week 11 opening lines. Those are presented by Unibet Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you're in Pennsylvania and ready to place your wagers on any of this weekend's matchups, download the Unibet PA app or visit pa.unibet.com. Wolf, it's back to basics for the Steelers this week on a number of fronts, tackling probably being front and center there. How can this defense ensure that it doesn't have a repeat performance of what we saw against Detroit?
Well, I'm sure the coaches are all going around and saying, feet, hands, face, feet, hands, face, feet, whatever. You know what I mean? All the little things that you got to say to be able to have the defensive guys be able, it's like Chuck saying under and up, the offensive line. It's those little key phrases that keeps you thinking about the job coming up. And then the other thing about it is making sure everybody's got their gaps. Again, it's about having the gaps, playing the gaps, stay in the gaps, and then when the play comes to you, make the play. And it's about, at that point, disengaging and tackling. And, without the ability to work on tackling the way you'd want to work on tackling, because if you did, then you know what? Nobody'd be healthy at all at any point in time during the season. Simply put, you've got to make sure that they're getting. I would suggest get a lot of mental reps. I don't know, and Arthur, you got to tell me. Back in my day, mental gymnastics were a huge part of preparing to play. Where you get yourself chilled out, and you sit up at night and you spend a half an hour in the theater of your mind. If I got so good at it, I could even get popcorn and my Kit Kat bars while I'm going through my plays.
Well, I would spend good money to spend a half an hour in the theater of your mind.
Careful, it might be a nightmare, buddy. But the point is, you can review all your techniques and everything you need to do, and you can get thousands of reps without even draining yourself at all or hurting yourself at all.
Yeah, man, to piggyback on what you were saying, Wolf, I do think you're 100% correct in terms of improving the defense's performance. You hit it first when you were talking about gaps. A lot of times, man, when you look on the tape, some of these missed tackles is guys out of position. And when you're out of position, based off of your alignment or based off of a bad read, bad eyes, that's going to have you naturally in a trail position. So instead of you getting your head across the ball carrier's body to stop their momentum and stop the yards after contact, you're reaching. Now you're having what we call arm tackles. And at this level, guys are too good. They run through arm tackles. Then when you compound, the guys who are big hitters, but they don't necessarily wrap up, that's another issue, because at this level, the contact balance is too good with these running backs and receivers. Guys barely go down on big hits. You have to wrap them up and drive them to the ground. So when I look at those two things, and then a sprinkle of effort at some point as well, those are the three things that have to be consistent across the board for this defense to improve, not just as a whole, but individually as well. When you talk about certain players that are in contract years or in make or break seasons, you have to be more consistent, and especially with the fundamental day one things of playing football, which is tackling if you're a defender.
Arthur, quick question for you. And by no means am I excusing their tackling from last week, but field conditions and weather were an issue. I mean, it was a very soft, worn field. How much do you think that could, affect such a thing with your footing and your balance and all those type of things too as a tackler?
No, 100%, man. It can definitely affect your footing. And guys, I mean, when you're thinking about, how elusive ball carriers can be, sure, you might see a guy slip, but it's a difference between a person slipping and a person being shook out of their shoes. It's a difference between, it's a rainy day and you might not be able to get grip on on a ball carrier versus you hit them, but you just didn't wrap up, or you wrapped up, but the effort wasn't always there. The legs didn't continue churning afterwards. Those were some of the things that popped up on tape that for me, it's hard to just throw that in it was because of the weather category. Now, did weather play a factor? Absolutely. But as a defender, it's certain things that you just say, hey, man, we rise above this. Everybody out here is dealing with the same things. That running back can only do so many moves before they slip themselves. So you really have to focus on your fundamentals, your footwork, making sure that your feet are underneath you, having good bend and stuff like that. And those are things that, at this level, everybody understands. It's just more so the repetition becomes an issue because of what Wolf was talking about in terms of the lack of tackling practices.
Matt,
one thing I wanted to ask you, Arthur, was the fact when you watch the tape, of the game, you see those drag along tackles. You see those rugby scrum. To me, that's more demoralizing for a defense than getting shook out of your shoes or anything like that. When you see the effort of the offensive team trying to push their guy, you go 10 yards. That's, to me, I remember back in the day when you get those occasionally where you get behind and you push like that. That was like really putting the boots to the opponent. I know the defenses really hated that.
Yeah, without a doubt, because at the end of the day, that's just signifying who's the more physical player, who's the more physical unit on those particular plays. And as a defender, as a player in the NFL, we operate with a certain level of pride that we never want to feel like another team or person is more man than us or more physical than us. So 100%, man, that is very demoralizing.
I kind of feel that way when I host these panel discussions. Matt, let's take a look at the Chargers. Like most teams, the Chargers go as their quarterback, Justin Herbert, goes, and it's kind of been a tale of two seasons. There you see the numbers on Herbert. And the Chargers, a team that got off to a very good start, and they've been scuffling of late, including a loss last Sunday against Minnesota. What are you seeing from Herbert and his offense most recently?
A couple things really stand out in terms of the tale of two seasons with these guys. Is first off, you don't need to be a former scout to realize Herbert's an immense talent. And I'm sure people go, how could two quarterbacks got drafted ahead of that guy? Well, one of the knocks on him coming out of Oregon was maybe he's a little too conservative, and I thought a lot of it was because of the Oregon scheme. Well, the Chargers have kind of reverted back to that, that they are not pushing the ball down the field hardly at all. And their new offensive coordinator comes over from the Saints, and he's treating it much like end-of-career Drew Brees, as opposed to one of the most talented, best throwers of the football in the league. So they're not pushing the ball down the field nearly as much as playing to Herbert's strengths, and he's a great deep passer. And then the other thing I really saw last week was their blitz pickup was pretty questionable. And Mike Zimmer's a handful, there's no question about that. But, they had three new starters that they invested in heavily, and then the other two guys haven't played a lot of football either, and their communication and blitz pickup hasn't been great.
Yeah, I think that goes to the running back position as well.
Yeah.
No question. The one thing I wanted to jump in, Matt is so spot on with this stuff. But, the thing about it is you look at some of the tape and you see when there's multiple sack games, you can see his QBR just going right downhill. I mean, and the more new people you get in there, that's why I'm wondering if the possibility exists that some nice blitz reads, some nice blitz control packages, fire zone, all that stuff. That might be something you can use if TJ's not able to play, and you're going to have some issues with people in and out of the lineup there, defensively speaking.
Yeah, Arthur, the Steelers have been going more to four-man rushes of late. It's not the Blitzburg that we once knew, but kind of similar to the maybe this is the week to run the ball on the offensive side of the ball. Is this the week to unleash the hounds?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely looking like that. The only reason I would say that's not going to be my initial plan coming into this game is because of how well Alex Highsmith has been playing. We know who Cam Hayward is. He's been this steady Eddie, high-end productivity guy for the past couple of years, and his play has shown to continue that way this season. Alex Highsmith right now has been the X factor. Dating back to the Seahawks game, he's hit a switch. He's hit another gear, and you can see the productivity, the effort that he's playing with, the sense of urgency. And for me, if he can continue to operate like that and win off the edge, now he's going to have a really good guy in Rashawn Slater that he's going against. But if he can start to have even more success with Cam Hayward up front like that, I don't think you necessarily need to blitz this group. But the flip side is if Alex isn't able to replicate that type of productivity and you're potentially either having a limited TJ Watt or no TJ Watt, then you have to go pressure. And I do think that they can get away with that when you talk about some of these nickel corners that they've been using this season. Guys like Arthur Milet, obviously Cam Sutton could get it done. And even Trey Norwood has shown some really bright things as well. So I think that going into this game defensively, we have options, but I don't want to go the route of blitzing just yet, because when you blitz, you do open up some things on the back end. And with our secondary potentially missing some pieces, that's a whole nother element that you got to start to deal with as well.
I think that's one thing I think you have to address here. Did Arthur Moats, former linebacker, just say, hold off on the blitz until you really need it? I don't even know you anymore.
Only because Alex Highsmith, who happens to play my direct position at outside linebacker, is going to benefit. That's all. That's all.
One other thing, Mike, and Arthur kind of mentioned this without mentioning the name Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, if you're missing that deep middle center fielder that erases so many problems, maybe blitzing's a little too risky.
Good point by you, Matt. Let's take a look now at Pick and Win, which is presented by Unibet. Each week, participants can answer a variety of trivia and predictive questions for points. The person with the most at the end of each week wins a prize, and the grand prize at the end of the season goes to the top points getter. That's a trip to the Pro Bowl in fabulous Las Vegas. It's free and easy to play. Download the Steelers official mobile app, create a fan profile, and find the Pick and Win banner under the Fan Zone section. Guys, as always, this has been a lot of fun. Anybody got anything they want to add to put a bow on it, or have we solved all the problems and questions and concerns as they relate to Steelers at the Chargers Sunday night?
I think you nailed it.
That about does it for me.
I think.
Hey, when in doubt, paint the barn red. So I'm painting the barn red. All right, I'm with you.
Just don't paint with a broad brush. For Arthur Moats, Craig Wolfley, and Matt Williamson, I'm Mike Prisuta filling in for Missy Matthews. Thank you for finding us, however and wherever you found us. And let me remind you that you can find these and other type programming on all of the Steelers' social media platforms. That's going to do it for the matchup presented by Unibet. Thanks for watching.